Gentlemen, hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to an all new year and all new season of the one and only Middle of the Pack Racing League, and in particular the Winter GR86 Championship for 2025 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, the Middle of the Pack Racing League is back once again after a brilliant 2024. It wouldn't be a complete 2025 without an all-new season of racing with the Middle of the Pack Racing League, while the premier North American racing divisions on the iRacing simulator. And well, what better way to kick off an all-new year at the MPRL than with the much-loved Winter GR86 series. Now back for its third season, having kicked off in 2023 in parallel with the introduction of the Toyota GR Cup in North America. It is a series which is all focused around the Toyota GR86 Cup car, a car that has proven highly popular both on the iRacing simulator and also on what is none other than the real-life racing circuit. A car which you can enter into the series for quite a reasonable sum, and in doing so you have at your hands a lightweight version of the highly popular two-seater machine, albeit its 2.4 litre four-cylinder engine, and well, the car will be absolutely made to be easy for the newcomer, and indeed easy for the veteran as well to race in, but hard to master in the fact you have very little power behind the engine, but what you do have is a very capable chassis, and all put together, it means it's not about speed, but it's about cornering and mastering the art of weight transfer in the car that is the difference between success and looking upwards towards those who finish on the top of the podium. But as we return then for the third rendition of the Winter GR86 Championship, well, we kick off today with round number 1 of 8 here in Spain at the Circuito de Navarra, a circuit that has recently changed ownership as of 2022 from local hands to the company of the MSV. Is a circuit that's gone under numerous refurbishments, particularly in the year of 2024, and in 2025 it's a circuit that's very quickly re-attaining its status as being one of the premier circuits in Spain. Perhaps overshadowed by the likes of the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya, is a circuit that is lesser referenced but highly well respected in the fact that it's all about tight corner sequences, particularly its hairpins, and also some very sharp and tricky braking zones. Altogether, it means it's all about battling on the brakes and being smart on the straights if you want to come out on top here today. And as we welcome you all to this post-round broadcast of the circuit side, we can expect plenty of battling action to get the championships underway. Now, this is a post-round broadcast. What does that mean for the uninitiated? Well, it means that the racing you're going to be seeing on screen is not live. It occurred earlier this week as of what was Wednesday, the 29th of January 2025, but we're bringing it to you as if it were live today, this Saturday, the 1st of February, and that means in the commentary booth, it's all raw and new to us guys and girls that tuning in from the commentary booth, as it will be for yourselves at home if you weren't present on the grid or you don't know the results and the drivers who competed. And we do ask that you avoid any potential spoilers in your respective stream chats. Speaking of streams, this broadcast is live on 2 media platforms for your viewing pleasure. You could be tuning in firstly via YouTube at youtube.com and search for TX141TX or Paul Walsh, and welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via YouTube. Alternatively, you could be tuning in via twitch.tv/TX141, and welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via Twitch. Now, who is TX141 or Paul Walsh? Allow me to introduce myself as your host and commentator for this season, for it is I, Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll be bringing you all your racing action once again. I'm very happy to be back working with the Middle Pack Racing League. I can tell you this is the best way to get off 2025 as a commentator as it is as a spectator. And speaking of our schedule for tonight, times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinated Time, UTC, well, as we can see in just under 5 minutes time, well, in fact just over 5 minutes time, just under 10 minutes time, I get ahead of myself there with time. We'll be going into our 15-minute qualifying session, and we'll get to see who's able to lay down the best lap over a single distance, and then we'll be moving on to the first of our races for this season, the 30-minute sprint race, due to get underway at 8:30 this evening. But as we get set, let's take a look at that championship calendar, because goodness me, it's a good one. Because as we can see here, we have got 8 rounds. They're split into 2 cups. It's the traditional middle of the pack racing league fashion, where we do have the championship broken up into cups. Our first cup of the season, beginning today at Navarra, is the free content cup. Given the fact the Toyota GR86 Cup car is completely free on the iRacing simulator service, and a number of tracks are as well, we thought we'd mould it together and turn it into a completely free cup. So if you're going to make the opening 4 rounds, or you just want to try out racing this series, we are absolutely free to do so, because there's no entry fee to be on the grid. And we kick off at the Circuito de Navarra, and in a week's time we make our way to Germany for the Motorsport Arena Oschersleben, for then heading to United Kingdom for a double header in round number 3 And we'll be our sprint at Snetterton, and after that we're making our way to Alton Park for our first feature race round, where it'll be a 50-minute race with no qualifying session, but more details on that when we get to the round. After the completion of our first cup, we'll then take a mid-season break of what will be a week before returning for the Roval Cup from round number 5 to round number 8. And whilst a good number of these circuits are paid for, 2 of them are paid for, 2 of them are free of charge, so therefore this is an absolutely brilliant budget series to get yourself, if you're new to iRacing or new to league racing, behind the wheel of a machine and take it toe-to-toe with your rivals. And we'll see how drivers will take off with the legacy loud of the Phoenix Raceway Circuit on the 5th of March, and then they'll continue the theme of sprint races going to the Charlotte Roval on what is the 12th of March, round number 6. Then round number 7, they'll be making their way to the Miami Roval, and then we'll be heading to Indianapolis to wrap up the championship on what will be the 26th of March. The racing being brought to you as if it were live shortly after for round 8 of 8 in the second of our feature race round. And the Roval is very different from the highly technical circuits you'll see in the Free Content Cup, where it's all going to be about slipstream orientated racing in the Roval Cup, whereas in the Free Content Cup it's all going to be about battling on the brakes and being hard and fast in those corners. But with our 8 rounds, the big question you may be asking is, well, who's going to compete in those 8 rounds? Well, we have 25 drivers on the grid, split into the Pro and Am classes. And starting with the Pro class, we've got 13 entrants here. Many of them will be names that you are highly familiar with, whether it be the likes of Logan McKinsey in the number 4 for AlphaTauri and Rich Energy, alternatively David Adeyi in the number 32, or looking to the higher numbers there, John Lauzon for West Coast, Best Coast in the number 77. We are missing one big name here, and some of you may have already guessed it already, and that is the number 5 of Jason Landry, the reigning champion from 2024. He's not on the grid for this season, and therefore we will see a new Pro champion come the end of the 8 rounds of the race. And Jason not quite able to make it, but I get the feeling he's going to be tuning and watching who is going to be taking his crown. But he is a big absence, and we miss Jason, no doubt about it. But at the same time as well, the mantle is going to be passed on, but which of these 13 drivers will take it? But with one driver, big driver, being absent, we also need to introduce some new drivers in the Pro class, and in particular, we need to introduce none other than what is George Luiz, who you can see there in the number 10, the privateer from Brazil, who'll be taken to the grid, and we look forward to seeing how he can mix it up with the veterans. And we've also got some drivers who'll be looking for redemption after a difficult 2024 campaign, including the likes of number 28 and Matt Best, the privateer for Texas Speed Sim Racing, where it didn't go quite right on his debut in 2024, but he'll be hoping for plenty more, and the same there as well for Tom Bryce in the number 72. But then coming on to the Am class, our other 12 drivers, well, here they are, and much like in the Pro class, we've got a lot of returning names, some absentees, but also a new name to mention on there. And we're speaking of returning names, many of you will be familiar with the likes of Jermaine Warren or Blake Phillips, the 213 and 225 drivers respectively, and the old favourites from Sunday GT Turtles. They're back, and Mark Senegal and Roger Ganesh, and also looking to the high numbers, Glenn Bratton, the privateer in the 289, who's had some brilliant performances in the past, but needs to go one step further in order to try and take a championship crown. And we also do have the introduction of the 277 driver to the MPRL community, and that is Marlon Brundle. And you'll see him out there giving it his all, the Brazilian driver as well, and wishing the best of luck on his debut. But for all our competitors, what are they competing for? The prizes. Well, prize-wise, there are plenty of prizes to be won in the championship, and as we can see, the return of all of our prize formats. $20 for what is each of our class drivers, should they win the Drivers' Championship in their respective class. That's why the big prize is out there. We've also got $5 a piece for each of the cups, whoever wins those cups. And as we can see, they're the winner of the Free Content Cup, and that's the leader of the championship standings based on rounds 1 through to 4. They'll be taking home that monetary prize, and we'll do the same again for the Roval Cup, who is the leader of the championship standings based on rounds 5 to 8. We also see there the $30 prize returning for the winner of the team's championship, and the prize will be split across the team members as they so desire, but we do recommend they do it equally because it's an equal opportunity for team members. And then last but not least, we always have what is our one-off raffle draw prize for any drivers who completed at least 7 of the 8 rounds of the championship, and by complete we define that as finishing the race within 5 laps of the race winner. And well, whoever receives that raffle draw, they'll be receiving the biggest prize of them all, $50, and that is it, of course, to encourage drivers who may not be on the pace compared to their peers to compete in every single round, because you never know, you could get lucky and take home the biggest prize of them all available to you and your peers. But those are the prizes. The scene is set. Where exactly are we racing today? Well, we are racing at the Speed Circuit Medium Loud of the Circuito de Navarra, located in Spain, in particular in what is the region of the township of Los Arcos, in the wider town and community of Estella, in the municipality of Navarra, Spain. And thank you to iRacing for their brilliant simulator and the fantastic track maps that come with it, because as we can see here from the circuit map, whilst we're not running the full 2.44 mile loud to the circuit, which would span 15 corners, the medium loud to the circuit brings together the best elements of the circuit and is absolutely primed to these Toyota GR86s. As our drivers roar their way around what is its 1.66 mile length, they'll find themselves having to contend with a variety of hairpins and a good number of sweepers as well. And as they charge their way down the long start-finish straight, they'll head into the double right at turns 1 and 2 before needing to come hard on the brakes into 2 to set themselves up for the hairpin at turn number 3. Coming out of there, it's then going to be a charge through the left-hand kinks at turns 4 and 5 before they make their way up towards turn number 6 into the second of the hairpins. And then it's a short run through the kink of 7 in towards 8 for the third and final hairpin before they make their way into the start-finish straight, and we can expect into plenty of the corners, 2, 3, perhaps even 4 wide if our drivers try. But as we get ready to go racing in, rules arise. Well, as we can see, setups, our drivers are running a fixed setup as provided by the middle of the pack Racing League, with fuel loads restricted to 27.3 litres, and that will stay the same throughout the season. Qualifying wise, an open qualifying format shall be used, which lasts 15 minutes and split into 2 equal halves. The AM class shall take to the grid for the first half, and the Pro class shall take to the circuit for the second half. And therefore that means that our drivers have plenty of opportunity to get the best possible lap in their respective classes, but they will all be combined onto an overall grid. When we do go racing, the race shall start via a standing start, as is the tradition of this series, with each driver having 1 fast repair available, and the driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 15 or more instant points. But that's enough rules, regulation, everything in between. You're all here for the racing, and so are we. And well, as we do see some of our drivers parked up in the pit lane currently, all getting themselves set. There's Glenn Bratton. We're currently sat in the pit lane, and well, I do also believe there we've got a driver making his way around, and there is Edwin Offred, the Pro Class driver, as he comes across the start-finish line to go on to another lap, and as he gets himself set to do so, well, a driver who really demonstrated his prowess in the LMP3 Championship to wrap up 2024, but it's a very different machine here, going from the downforce-orientated machine to something with a lot less downforce and a lot less power, going from a V8 engine to a 4-cylinder 2.4-litre boxer engine in the front of that Toyota. And as he makes his way on around here, knowing that with it being a very different style of machine, he's going to need to take a very different approach if he wants to get the most out of it, as he roars his way upwards towards turn number 7. As he heads on through there and in towards the braking zone for the hairpin. In fact, that's turn number 6 there. Let's get our numbers right. Well, we do see him make his way on around, and we also do look to George Louise as he comes out there in a very colourful livery there. And is that Daffy Duck on the side of it? Well, I don't think that's Daffy Duck. I'm trying to remember the name of the character from Disney. It's the Duck-style character, and well, not to be confused with Goofy, I believe. Well, I'm not quite sure whether it is Daffy or not, but I'm sure somebody could correct me there. I'm very good on my Looney Tunes, but not good on my Disney characters, I must admit, albeit that may appall some. But as he makes his way around, we wish him the best of luck on his debut in the Pro class, and we'll definitely get some eyes on as well what is our newcomer in the AM class, Marlon Brandel, when we do see him out there in qualifying. But as he makes his way down, Louise in towards what is turn number 6 and coming up towards 7, we can see there the road racing surface is quite wide, or at least it looks it on the straights, but coming into these corners it's not going to offer that much width, and that's going to be on the minds of our drivers in the fact that with a limited amount of width, it means there's a very limited natural racing line, and therefore to battle off of it you're going to cost yourself a lot of time, as we do see there Louise going around. And well, the fixed setup that our drivers are running in these machines has the traction control completely switched off, and that does mean that these cars do get a little bit more aggressive on their power application coming out of the corners, particularly in first and second gear, and that's going to be other things that our drivers will need to contest with, as we do see Blake Phillips making his way out of turn number 3 and up towards 4. Now we should point out the team names that you're going to be seeing for a number of drivers today will be updated going into round number 2. The reason for that is the team's registration wasn't open until quite late in the day going into round number 1, and therefore all of our drivers will be taking their points in this round, but the teams will be confirmed going into round number 2, and we'll give you an update on the teams championship after round 2, whereas it'll just be the drivers championship going into round 2 when we have that broadcast in a week's time. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we've been waiting patiently for the first qualifying session of the season, but as the checker flag comes out, it's about to get underway. We'll be right back to kick off qualifying. And as we do return, qualifying is underway, and it's the AM class first and foremost that make the way out of the pit lane, and all the AMs will be setting those initial times immediately as they start to make the way out. But it's the first qualifying session of the 2025 campaign, and that means all the drivers now will be very eager to try and make an early impression on their peers as they do head into qualifying. But what can we expect is perhaps the big question that's being asked here, and the short answer is we don't quite know, given the fact a very different style of circuits for this season compared to 2024, and also some circuits that are new to the calendar, and particularly the Navarra circuit, which was introduced over 2024 to the iRacing simulator platform, and therefore all of our drivers will be looking to see where exactly they rank up versus their rivals. Of course, in the final practice warm-up session, we did see what was the pole time being set in practice by James Logsdon, but practice is one thing, putting it into anger in qualifying is another, and therefore it is going to be one of those situations where we'll have to wait to see who really shines. But what else can be expected here in qualifying? Well, given the fact the Circuito de Navarra is a circuit with some relatively flat curbs and also very limited elevation change over its distance, this is going to be one of those circuits where it is all about trying to maximize your usage of the track width in order to open up those corners and being ready to return to full throttle as soon as possible in order to blast your way down the next straight, and that could be something which our drivers will either be able to master quite quickly, or alternatively they may struggle with it, and if they do struggle, that's where they could fall behind in qualifying. We also potentially expect a little bit of slipstream antics with the fact that you do have that long start finish straight, and you've also got the long run out of turn 3 all the way out towards turn number 6, and if you can get a distant tire of one of your rivals or teammates, that could aid you by giving you a couple attempts back in terms of time. But as the drivers make their way into their first flying laps, we've got a couple of drivers still leaving the pit lane there, having a bit of a slow run out the pit lane, including Carl Peterson and also Marlon Brandel. And well, speaking of Marlon Brandel, let's introduce the newcomer in the AM class, and there you can see him in what is number 277 yellow machine, as we've got a car around. That's the 225 that's gone for a spin of Blake Phillips, and that is at turn number 3. So Phillips there getting it a little bit wrong early on, but now righting the wrongs and getting himself up to speed. But we'll have to wait and see what Phillips can do as the qualifying session goes deeper and deeper, and as he makes his way around, I think Phillips right now, but he's just trying to get himself composed in this qualifying session. But as he makes his way up speed and going in towards the next couple of quarters, well, we do see there the AM session indicator on the top of your screen, and we'll keep you updated with regards to when we do transition between those qualifying sessions. But right now, Phillips making his way on around, and as he does so, well, our first lap times are about to come on in, and we can see it's going to be none other than Mark Senegal who sets the initial pace at the bottom of your screen, and he sets a 1 minute 12.564, and then Glenn Bratton goes what is half a second slower on a 1:13.046. Nick Yakubov, meanwhile, a 1:12.666. And then Billman da Costa for his team Bear Pope, absolutely flying now, 1 minute 12.041 to start off his qualifying session, and that is a good time. And we'll Blake Phillips there 12 seconds down. That won't be classified as a valid lap, but he gets the lap in just to be able to make it work out. And as the drivers make the way on through, and we say hello there to Little Regret in the YouTube chat, and well, good evening to you, Little Regret. I hope you're doing well, and thank you for the kind birthday wishes, and saying there about practicing for the wrong layout of the circuit, and indeed with the 3 different layouts, and all of them having the name speed circuit, and then afterwards being what is suffixed by either nothing if it's the full layout, or medium or short. I must admit I'm guilty of that mistake when doing some adventuring and practicing of my own on the platform, in the fact that I've picked the wrong layout when I've waited to do the full layout of the circuit. So you're not alone there, Little Regret. And like I say, thank you for those birthday wishes. And for context, ladies and gentlemen, when this race was hosted, well, it was my birthday on the 29th of January, so therefore it's a nice early birthday present for what is 2025 to be able to be seeing the MPRL getting underway once again with what is its GR86 Championship, a much loved series, no doubt about it. And well, as we do see Bratton making his way up towards what is turn number 1 coming on in, we've still got 3.5 minutes left in this session as he winds his way on through the corner right now. And more Bratton here on a 1 minute 11.874. Well, immediately Marlon Brandel goes even faster, a 1:11.661. This circuit is definitely rubbering in quickly, and those tyres are coming up to temperature as well. So all the drivers at the moment really will need to get that last possible lap in. Keeping in mind, of course, that we've been fixed setups, they're not allowed to tinker with the fuel tanks. They will have, where's that 27.3 litres of fuel that's put in the car immediately, and they will not be able to pull it out. So the more laps you do in qualifying, the more naturally you will have a lighter car towards the end of it. But of course, then comes the question of protecting the tyres a little bit and not overusing and abusing them, and therefore you will have the tyre life to go full attack towards the end of qualifying, which is where you can get the best possible times. I believe there's also a slight risk of rain coming into today, but I can tell you one thing, whilst we have got a bit of cloud, we have got a lot of sunshine as well off in the distance. It's quite a warm day, and therefore we may not be too worried about the rain arriving on the scene, and therefore it does look as though here our drivers are going to have a relatively uninterrupted qualifying session when it comes to good weather, as Glenn Bratton goes the fastest off camera now, 1 minute 11.406. Here's Navarra Kumar. who joined the Middle of the Pack Racing League Series in 2024 as part of the LMP3 Series, if my memory serves me correctly, and yet to get a qualifying lap in on an out lap right now, so leaving it very late in the day. Jermaine Moran, meanwhile, not going to be putting in a qualifying lap whatsoever. The car not coming out the pit lane. That's a little bit of a surprise there, so it does mean that what is out of our 12 AM entrants, we've got 11 of them here today, and 10 of them will set lap times. They make their way on through, but as we do see Kamar coming down towards what is turn number 8, we'll have to see him get his first lap on the board shortly as he makes one out there, but a little bit of sideways motion coming out of turn number 8, and I think still trying to get some tyre temperature as Nick Bader now sets the fastest lap of 1 minute 11.385, and well 200ths faster compared to Glenn Bratton. And these drivers are all pushing each other to the limit right now in the AM class. It's getting tighter and tighter at the top, and well, oh goodness me, losing the rear of the car and drifts it to a halt. They've also got going around Mark Senegal just in front, so both drivers there making some big mistakes, and Nick Bader in particular losing it. In fact, that's not Mark Senegal who's gone around there trying to discern who that is, but it's definitely not Senegal, I believe. That was the car of Roger Ganesh going for a spin. Both of them absolutely attacking into turn number 3, as well as a Sunday GT Turtles car, but it wasn't the one we were thinking of. But meanwhile, speaking of cars that we're thinking of, we're going to jump on board very shortly with Bilman da Costa for a flying lap from an AMS perspective here at the Circuito de Navarra as he heads down towards turn 1. As he heads in towards the braking zone here. Well, no braking initially, of course. Flat out through 1, lets the car drift out to the left-hand side. Now on the brakes, points the car towards the apex of turn 2. You're effectively braking for turn number 3. Just easily off the brakes there. Trail braking on down, and then back on the throttle as he makes way out from first gear up into second. Now into left-hander at turn number 4. Flat out through here, as long as he gets the angle right. Now heading in towards turn number 5. The slightly uphill left-hander is off camber at the apex, and therefore he needs to get a nice tight line on it in just to settle the car down. Does exactly that, and now brings it over to the left-hand side as he gets ready to brake into turn 6, the second of the hairpins. No brake marker to talk about other than the start of the entry curve on the left-hand side, so da Costa using that, but no, and it's a bit of muscle memory as well as he exits out in first gear. Now he's got turns 7 and 8 waiting for him at 2 corners to go into turn 7. No lifting here whatsoever, full commitment as he makes way through it, and then heading onto the anchors into turn 8, braking there, and in fact going straight onto da Costa. He's not happy with the lap and decides that's enough, and well, the drivers who are on laps currently, they are allowed to finish them, but the clock has struck 7.5 minutes, so it does mean that without further ado, when they get to the end of this lap, the AM drivers will be required to come into the pits, whether by towing or driving in. They can do it either way. Will we see any more improvements before all is said and done? Well, we can see up there where's the car of Nick Yakubov coming into the pit lane. I suspect a number of drivers will be making their way into the pits, and in fact there you can see Blake Phillips does not improve. He stays at P5, but that is going to be qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen, and we do move on to the pros now as we make our way into the second half of qualifying. And well, as we do, the only AM driver who's out there at the moment on a valid lap is Roger Ganesh. What can he do as he comes across the line? He's currently P7. He will improve, I think. Yes, he does, but he doesn't improve his overall position. He improves to 1 minute 11.913, and now we are into the pro half of the session, and we can see that as it's going to be Edwin Offray who has led the drivers out of the pit lane. Well, and Offray really proved himself in the LMP3 machine and running the red livery, and I get the feeling that might be a slight tribute to the red livery he ran in the LMP3 in the Ligier P320, and quite interestingly enough, whilst he wasn't intended, taking his first win of the season at Imola at the Ferrari home base circuit, and doing so in practically Ferrari colours. And I think that's stuck with Offray ever since he makes his way across that line in the number 99. But as he heads on down, and of course our pro drivers, they'll be on a circuit that's definitely got some rubber laid down on it, but they're going to need to get those tyre temperatures up, much like their peers in the AM class. One thing to note, if you're looking at door numbers, all the drivers who are in the pro class, you will see have door numbers ranging from 0 to 99, and those in the AM class will have door numbers from 200 to 299, and that's another way you can discern who's a pro and an AM if you're not able to see what is the blue banners across the front windshields, or alternatively, or what would be on their wing mirrors. Well, that's another way of seeing and being able to distinguish the drivers as they make the way on around. But as we do look to newcomer George Louise, he comes down in towards turn number 8 here, and I believe this is on an outlap. He's tucked in behind fellow countryman Kai Moraes, and Moraes also joined the Middle of the Pack Racing League in the LMP3, so we look forward to seeing what Moraes can do in a much slower car, and one that's more about technical craft, albeit that's not to besmirch being good at an LMP3 machine. team, but this car really is all about being as precise as possible, and Little Regret pretty much nailing that spot on there, saying have to be precise here given the competitive group of drivers, but these two working together here, and we look forward to seeing how that will work out for them, as meanwhile the first lap comes on the board for Edwin Offray, and well, what's it going to be for the initial time in the Pro class? We expect it could be a little bit down on the fastest AM times, given the fact the fuel bled out the cars for the AMs, where it's yet to do so for the pros, but 1 minute 11.757, given the first lap times coming in maxed out at 1 minute 12.0 in the AM class, we can already see that the pros are laying down the gauntlet, and speaking of a gauntlet being laid down, that's a 1 minute 11.079, and that's been set by James Logston, the man who has been tipped to potentially become the replacement Jason Landry for this season, given the fact that he really did take the fight to Jason Landry over the course of 2024, but was never quite able to take the full championship crown. And I do believe, unless my statistics are mistaken, barring the LMP3s, it was Jason Landry who took the overall Pro Drivers' Championships in what was both the Radicals and also the GR86s, when it was Navarra who took the overall Pro Championship in the LMP3s. Logston, meanwhile, just missing out in the GR86 and also the Radicals, and as he makes his way on down in towards turn number 6 on the brakes, well, driver stepping aside there, and well, some teamwork between what was Kaimarais and George Louise, and as you can see, they've not really got too far so far. 1 minute 12 apiece, so 1 minute 12.3 for Louise, meanwhile 1 minute 12.4 for Marais, and well, as Louise makes his way through the corners, well, I think he'll be hoping that he can find a bit more pace here, but of course the circuit may now start to come towards them, given the fact that both drivers will be trying to get those tyres up to temperature, but they haven't got long. 3.5 minutes left in this qualifying session. We are expecting some more improvements, including the ITT West crew there, a number of them being privateers, but some of them being the official team of ITT West, and that you can see is David Adeyi intermixed in amongst the likes of Shahi Zahair, and also I believe what is Julian Jones and Tom Bryce in amongst that group, and in fact that's Bryce and Jones. Now we get ourselves fixed correctly, Zahair a bit further around the circuit, and will Bryce rolling in behind here at the rear of the trio, and Shahi Zahair meanwhile in the middle of them. Oh goodness me, a huge amount around a counter steer there, the front of the car not wanting to negotiate with the rear, and Zahair having to take to the escape road there, or the runoff area, in order to avoid going around. And well, those wobbles are the moments where when the car comes off the brakes and you try to chuck it into the corners, because of the fact the electronic systems have either been switched off or turned down, both the anti-lock braking system and also the traction control, it does mean these Toyotas do get a little bit snappy as they come into those heavy braking zones and indeed try to rotate through the low speed corners, but that's what makes them a challenge here. And well, right now Zahair will be conscious of the fact he'll need to improve, given the fact there's only 2.5 minutes left and this qualifying session is really starting to head towards the precipice, as we see Edwin Noffridge just crossed the line, moved up to P7. Here comes John Lauzon, the man with a lot of misfortune in 2024, hoping not to see that again this season. He comes across the line, he moves up to P4 in a 1 minute 11.420. James Logston, meanwhile, 1 minute 11.079, his first lap set and his best so far. David Adeyi now up to P4, as he does bring along both Bryce and Zahair, but they do not improve. Julian Jones, meanwhile, just in front of them, and Jones there in the red and orange machine, bringing it on around in P6, but look at the deltas there between Adeyi in P4 and what is an offer in P9. It's only what is 2 tenths between the best part of 6 drivers. It is a very close qualifying session in the Pro class, but also a big mention there to Nick Baden and Glenn Bratton, who both put themselves firmly inside the top 10 currently. The highest 2 AM drives, could they get themselves towards the front rows of this AM class? We'll have to wait and see. As you can see, a little bit of toe being gifted there by Jones to none other than what was Zahair, as they make the way on around through the corner. In fact, that was David Adeyi. Let me get myself corrected. And as Adeyi makes his way on through, he'll be grateful for that slipstream, but how far will it take him up the order? That will be the question on his mind, as Edwin Offray comes to the timeline, does not improve, stays where he is. Kai Marais just at the bottom of your screen, didn't improve either. David Adeyi coming out the final corner as James Logston just makes his way through, still not improving, just trying to burn the fuel out. But Adeyi here, I think, is on for a significantly improved lap. He comes across the timeline. Then what's it going to be for Adeyi this time? With a minute left on the clock, it's a 1 minute 11.077. It's a new pole time set. Adeyi goes provisional pole by 2 thousandths over James Logston, and Shahi Zahair halves the deficit to pole, but it's a 1 minute 11.369. So Zahair not quite on the pace currently, and therefore he is getting closer at the top in terms of who's going to be on that front row. Zahair takes a very long distance call there, coming through 2 into 3, but that off track is going to spoil that lap, and that'll be an invalidated lap, and he'll have to tuck back in, knowing now his qualifying session is essentially done and dusted. He won't be able to improve any further, given he won't have the time to get around to do one more lap. But speaking of drivers on a lap still and still trying to find improvement, here's Louise as he comes down towards the start-finish line with Mirais a bit further back. Both drivers seemingly struggling a bit in qualifying. And, well, as Luis crosses the line, what's it going to be this time? He does improve to P12 in a 1 minute 11 at 0.781, so does break in to the 1 minute 11s. But a P12 start is going to be the best he's going to achieve as Mirais goes P11. Dethroning leads down to P13, and Mirais decides to back off as the checker flag waves, but drivers can still finish their laps they're on. And, well, as we do see Adi make his way through, what about Longston? Longston coming down towards the start-finish line. He goes back to pole. It's a 1 minute 11.007. Can anybody break into the 1 minute 10s? Will we see Adi coming across the line? He does not improve. Lauzon improves to P3. Jones improves but holds P4. And that is going to be qualifying, ladies and gentlemen, because Aaron Tiggett's had a big spin coming out the final corner. So James Longston will take overall pole position, subject to that lap being verified as valid, given the fact we don't have that data until they go to the grid. But James Longston looks to have taken pole in the end by 700 on the first round of the championship here at Navarra, and what a close qualifying session. David Adi just missing out, and in the AM class, it's P6 to Nick Bader who takes AM pole, but only doing so in the end by what was 200ths over Glenn Bratton. So it's going to be close in both the AM and the Pro classes, and also noticing there in the fact that we do have that intermingling inside the top 10 as George Louise improves to P11 and right at the end of qualifying, so leaves it to the last gasp. Well done to him, and just to get ahead of Mirais, they'll line up on row at number 6 together. But qualifying is complete, and what that means is now, ladies and gentlemen, we are just waiting to transition our way over to the grid for the purposes of today's race. And, well, it's going to get feisty. 20 drivers qualified, another 2 will be starting from the back of the field. Jermaine Warren and Aaron Law not setting times. And for the uninitiated, if you're wondering how you know who is an AM and a pro in the time on the left hand side of your screen, those with the blue stripes against their name are the pros, and those with the orange stripes, they are your AMs if you need to differentiate them. And we'll try and keep you updated on who's a pro and who's an AM as we go throughout the racing day and over the entirety of the season campaign. But as we now do continue to wait here, well, everyone's been taken back to the pit lane, and it's time to head to the grid. So the drivers make the way onto the grid. This is how they'll line up for the first race of the season. James Logston takes the inaugural pole position for Team Bear Pope in 2025 by what was 7.5 hundredths over David Adeyeye. On row at number 2, we have John Lauzon for West Coast Best Coast and Julian Jones for ITT West. The two of them separated by 3 thousandths by a sizable 3 tenths of a second gap to the front row. We then have P5 on the third row of the grid. The privateer Shahi Zuhair on what was a lap time only half a tenth of a Julian Jones is, and he just managed to out-qualify Nick Bader, who starts P6 there, the AM pole sitter, putting in a phenomenal qualifying lap. Glenn Bratton's just behind Bader, the second of our AM drivers, P7, ahead of Tom Bryce, who starts P8 today. Edwin Offray lines up P9, and then it'll be Marlon Brandel on his debut, who lines up P10. Behind the third place AM driver on the 6th row of the grid, it's George Louise and Carl Peterson, the Caboose Crew driver, then in P12 being followed up by what is the pro driver of Mirais, P13, ahead of Blake Phillips. And then we do have on row number 8, Bill DaCosta and Roger Ganesh, the Team Bear Pope driver, just ahead of the Sunday GT Turtles driver by 8 thousandths. And then we have on row number 9, Aaron Tiggett and Mark Senegal, ahead of the top 20 completing Nick Yakubov and Navarra Kumar. And then last but not least, on the final row of the grid, Jermaine Warren starts P21, ahead of Aaron Law, who starts P22. So the grid is set, ladies and gentlemen, and as we come down to the circuit, well, there you can see Logston on the right, Adeyeye on the left, both drivers absolutely itching to get racing. It is going to be a long drag race down towards turn number 1, and the big question will be, who will be the one to master it? Well, the lights are going on, and for the first time this season, ladies and gentlemen, it is going to be a roar. But who is going to take pole? It's time to find out as the lights are out and away we go. And as they make the way away, well, it's a good start there from Logston. Meanwhile, David Adeye's having a very slow start by comparison, and as the rest of the field now begins to bring itself together, it's looking tight out there, but all of our drivers here all now starting to strong arm their way into the opening corner, 3 wide in the mid pack there, and that is going to be a 3 wide battle just ahead of what will be Marlon Brando. And you can see Nick Bader up into lead of the AM class, holding off Glenn Bratton as they come down to the brains over turn 3. A little bit of bump and scrape there as Edwin Offray is getting 2 places off the line, and all the drivers make the way on through, everyone surviving the opening couple of corners, it would seem, as they make the way in towards turn number 4. But looking for that Navarra Kumar here on the inside, on the outside of Aaron Tiggott, and Tiggott moving up to P20 as they roar the way now in towards turn number 5, and many other drivers will start to calm themselves down and get into a one-line formation. As you can see, too wide there between Mark Senegal and Roger Ganesh, the two Sunday GT Turtles drivers, getting very tantalisingly close, whereas at the front of the field here, Edwin Offred trying to hold back Glenn Bratton as all drivers roar through the second hairpin. Marlon Brandel under pressure from Blake Phillips, and plenty of battles right now as they head in towards turn 7 and 8, but you can see the leaders now starting to go one-line formation as they head into that braking zone, and George Louise are not really gaining or losing place at the start. Back up the inside there, Blake Phillips to retake P11. Can he get it done? It looks like he can as they make the way across the timeline. So after one lap, it is James Logston who leads by 7.5 tenths over John Lauzon. David Adeyemi in P3 looking for a move on Lauzon, however, and as they make the way in towards the opening quarter, this time around, Adeyemi on the inside, Lauzon on the outside here, too wide. They enter into turn 2, and big impact there on the race sausage curb on the apex of turn number 2 for Adeyemi. Goes up onto 2 wheels, collects the car just in time, and Lauzon on the end made to watch bewildered as Adeyemi demonstrates what he can do at 2 wheels. But meanwhile, there's been a moment, a driver's gone a bit wide down. I think George Louise has gone around. I think Carl Peterson was collected in that. We'll try and get a replay of that very shortly as our drivers make the way on through. But a huge moment there for some. And meanwhile, at the back of the field, Aaron Tiggott's just squeezed his way past George Louise, and there you can see Navarra Kamar just breaking his way back ahead as they head in towards turn number 5. But too wide between the pro drivers here at the back of the field, and it's going to be Louise around the outside of Tiggott as they head down towards turn number 6 for the second time of asking. Onto the brakes they go, and George Louise right now just trying to get himself back up the order after a difficult start, and I think they're looking on the inside of Kamar, but Kamar does not wilt under the pressure. But looking at just up the road, Aaron Lahr also fighting here, having started from the back of the field, started P22. He's up in a P18 now, trying to pick his way past Jermaine Warren, with Carl Peterson putting some pressure on. But the big question is, what exactly happened with regards to that incident only moments ago? Well, we can give you a replay to find out, ladies and gentlemen, and here we go. Let's take a look back at what happened on lap number 2. This replay courtesy of Arturo Mayorga, and as they made the way through turn 2, it was a big impact to the curb there, and a very similar moment compared to what we saw from our second place driver David Adeyemi and Carl Peterson having to slam on the brakes in order to avoid being collected. Well, that explains it all, ladies and gentlemen, and well, without further ado, we now return to what is your live racing. And as we do, they're heading on back to live racing. Well, a big moment there for what was none other than Carl Peterson and also George Louise, and Louise in the end losing out considerably. But now as we return to the live racing action, and more still to come here from our drivers, no doubt about it, as we do see there a move being made by Aaron Lahr on Bill Da Costa to look up the inside to take P17, doing so there quite admirably, and well, Da Costa not putting up too much of a fight, but also being wary of the fact the pressure being put on as they roar the way on around. But as they do, heading in towards turn number 8, onto the brakes they go, and there you can see Lahr trying to get ahead of Jermaine and Warren now. Warren just sticking to his guns and not making any mistakes at the moment, but the two drivers absolutely pushing each other to the limit as they roar the way down the start finish straight in towards turn number 1. And as they head on down here, we've still got plenty of race distance to go, and they make the way onto lap number 4. But as they do come on down, well, we look from the back of the field towards the front of the field, and here is your lead battle between the drivers. And as you can see, James Logston right now just simply keeping his head down, doing everything right as he roars his way into towards the next braking zone. And well, it's going to be David Adeyemi who gives that chase all the way onwards towards the braking zone for turn number 6. Meanwhile, on the rear of the pitch, that's Nick Bader in the light blue machine under some major pressure in the battle here for what is P5, fighting with Shahi Zahair, the ITD machine in black and gold, just making his way ahead, leading AM driver, and these drivers all squabbling over position currently as they make the way in towards turn 7 and 8. Side by side, there goes Edwin Offred looking around the outside to get the inside in towards the turn 8 hairpin, and Offred is going to go for it as Bader finds himself on the outside. The two give each other plenty of room, but they fight it hard here, and an Offred trying to make his way up the running order, but can't do it as we ride on board then with Edwin Offred, the privateer in the number 99, as he tucks into the toe and tries to build up some speed. But the problem is here in the fact that these cars, they do gain time in the toe, but it takes a long time for them to gain a notable amount of speed and time, and therefore Onofre right now having to settle for just running in P7 as he heads in towards turn number 2. But Nick Bader doing a brilliant job job here, albeit fishtailing as he heads through two, goes a little bit deep, and then Offroad's going to look for the move here, but gets a power slapper with regards to the rear of the car as he gets a huge amount of power oversteer. Too wide they're going to turn number 4 and through and down towards turn 5. It's not over yet, surely, as Navarra right now does squeeze a nose ahead, but into left-hander they'll go. Too wide they'll enter. There'll have to be a lift for both drivers here in order to negotiate it side by side, and it is going to be Navarra who gets a nose ahead, albeit will he be fully ahead by the time they go into that braking zone? Well, in the end, Navarra is going to squeeze his way on in, but still he's got Bader there for company, and Glenn Bratton and Marlon Brando are catching up as Bader's not giving in. Now, many of you may be asking the question, well, why exactly is an AM battling with the pros? Well, keep in mind, of course, ladies and gents, much like with any middle-of-the-pack Racing League series, drivers score their points first and foremost. Overall finishing position, and it's going to be enough for a round there at turn number 8, and easy to make mistake, even for one of the best of the pros, and Navarra going around now has got all the work to do, and I think a sense of frustration will be there for Edwin Navarra in the fact he just wanted to take P6, but Bader was having enough of it and none of it as they come down towards another lap. But as they do, we look to Bryce versus Kai Moraes, and Moraes in the yellow machine attacking Bryce, who's in front right now, looking to go around the outside of two. This is brave stuff, and the Brazilian driver looking to make the move on the American as they roll them through the right-hander. Bryce gets his elbows out there, but gives Moraes just enough space to be able to survive through the right. In towards the left they go, and as they come out of turn number 4, well, Kai Moraes makes that place stick. A brilliant move there from Kai Moraes, and will another place gained. And meanwhile now it's going to be Mark Senegal looking for an opportunity. It gets very close there, over through turn number 5. The cars bounce around and almost making contact, but not quite. So I think there might have been a little love tap, but nothing more than that. As you can see, Bryce all over the back of Moraes, who's trying to back him up in order to get him to fight with Senegal, and in the end Moraes does exactly that, but Senegal's not quite able to make the move as they head in towards turn number 7 through the left-hander. Senegal's there on the inside, but Bryce has got a nose ahead, but he's going to drift out on understeer there in towards the right-hander of 8. Too wide they enter, too wide they're going to exit, but Bryce on that inside line will not have the ability to get the throttle down as much as you like, and Mark Senegal does take the place in the end, and a brilliant move there for Mark Senegal as they head down towards turn number 1. But as they head on down, we look back to Edwin Navarra, is now trying to pick up the pieces after that spin at turn number 8 from his battle with Nick Bader, and well, as they roar the way down, it's going to be a look up the inside versus Nick Yakubov as they head in towards the right-hander. And, well, this could be relatively straightforward between the two drivers, or will it be? Well, Nick Yakubov's going to hold the outside there. Meanwhile, Aaron Lahr gets a bit closer, and I think we have had a bit of a moment just in front between drivers. I think Nick Bader's had a big going around. In fact, no, he's not. He just locked up. That's the smoke that you could see for a brief moment. And meanwhile, 3 wide as a result into turn 5. You don't normally see this. And between the pair, it's going to be with Mark Senegal there, who parts the seas and goes for the proverbial Moses manoeuvre, and a brilliant move there from Mark Senegal to take the place. But look at this, Kai Moraes comes blazing in hot, just about gets the car stopped in time. Well, in fact, that's not Kai Moraes, my apologies, and oh goodness me, it's all kicking off there in the fact that we had Nick Bader go around. He's been collected alongside Mark Senegal, and Blake Phillips was the yellow card we saw. Well, no, it was not the yellow card we saw on the inside there, and well, we'll try and discern. I think it was Glenn Bratton, in fact, who had the absolutely scolding run on in. Well, in fact, no, it was Kai Moraes. We were right the first time. We're foolish to doubt ourselves there in the fact that Glenn Bratton has gained from all of this, and goodness me, it's all absolutely exploded on our screens in the space of what has been 5 corners. But as Glenn Bratton makes his way down towards turn number 1, I think we need to try and unpick what exactly happened there, and well, let's take a look back and get a replay. Well, with regards to what exactly happened, then we take a look back only moments ago to that contact between the drivers, and it was 3 wide initially. That was none other than Mark Senegal battling side by side with Glenn Bratton and Nick Bader. They all made the way on through, and as they came down towards the braking zone, the car we were thinking of that was battling in amongst this was Marlon Brando, and Brando looking for that move. He was on the inside there. Well, Senegal went round, and in the end it got collected with Nick Bader, and well, we did see a slow run from Marlon Brando, was trying to be what was conscious everything going on, and Kai Moraes, the other all-yellow car, in the end just simply sailed on through. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's return to your live racing, and as we do, while drives continue to go on, unfortunately our splash screen that we'd normally have in order to show the transition back to live not currently working at the moment, and well, as we do, we are only 10 minutes into this race, and we're looking back to leaders now, as here comes some brilliant battling between James Logsdon and David Adeyiyi, and Adeyiyi looking for that move around the outside. He's going to have John Lauzon looking for an opportunity now as the drivers make the way on around, and well, as they do so, it's getting very close, very tasty between the drivers, roaring their way through the corners, and in the end Logsdon holds on, but Lauzon gets the place there of Adeyiyi for now, it would seem, at least. But as they come in towards turn number 5 and onwards towards 6 and 7 they'll go. You can see there Logsdon taking a very tight exit through the left-hander down towards the hairpin. You can see a quick look from Adeyeye, and me or Julian Jones at the back of this thinks, well, how can I get involved? And the answer simply is he needs to play the patience game. Because this lead battle between the top four with a sizable gap of what is 4 seconds to Shahi Zahair, who you see in P5 in the rear of the picture, does mean that right now, if they fight each other too hard, they're only going to risk bringing more drivers into this fight. But from Zahair, it's in a 9-second gap to Glenn Bratton, so therefore it does seem as though right now this top four all together quite comfortably, all working out the kinks as they roar the way down towards turn number 1. There's a way to go, and keep an eye on it. It's a 30-minute race. We're not expecting any pit stops here. It's all going to be about who can protect those tyres to the end and feel confident in the car all the way to that checker flag. But heading up through turn 1, down in towards 2 and 3. Well, right now the quartet all together, and meanwhile Kai Marais looking to make some more places. We see a car's gone round in the rear of the picture. That is Jermaine Warren, who's had a trip round. We'll try and get a replay of that where we can. We've also had an incident separately for Blake Phillips, and well, as they're heading towards the braking zone, Kai Marais defending now as they head in towards turn number 3 under pressure from what is none other than Tom Bryce, and Glenn Bratton, the leading AM driver here, will just trying to keep himself well ahead of the field. Now, coming back to a point I mentioned earlier, or I started to mention before it got very tasty, and we did start to see that free wide coming into turn number 5 between our AM leaders. All drivers score points based on their overall finishing position, whether it's going to be if they take the win overall and the win in their class, they will get the points for the overall win. That's what matters most. But if you are in the AM class, you also do get bonus points for being on the AM podium. So when the AM class finishing positions are sorted out, and it's 3 bonus points for first place, 2 for second, 1 for third, and that's why you'll see AM drivers fight pros just as hard as they will fight their AM peers, because at the end of the day every position matters, and that's what makes the Middle of the Pack Racing League series so interesting, in the fact that here you'll have AMs trying to show their worth versus pros, and when we do have a prime class as well. But right now one driver is just trying to show his way through is David Adeyeye, as we look back from the rear of what is the number 77 of John Lauzon as he powers his way out of turn 3 hairpin. Adeyeye getting very adventurous there, coming into 3 by 2, and in the end not quite being able to get the run, and Julian Jones in fact catching back up as we say hello there to Nashers in the YouTube chat, who says this looks excited. Indeed, absolutely brilliant racing right now from our drivers in the GR86 machines. And we also say hello to Satinder Dinsa, saying that getting spun like that with reference to what happened at turn number 6 for was our AM leader at the time, that is being so frustrating, and I can imagine definitely some frustration there for the likes of Marlon Brandel, also for Mark Senegal, and well, most importantly none other than what we saw for Nick Abada, with all of them coming together in that quick succession of quarters. But still plenty of fighting to go in a long distance, and anything can happen before this is all said and done today, as the drivers roar the way on out, and as they head up towards turn number 1 this time. Well, it looks like John Lauzon there right now not closing up to Logsdon. Logsdon being bought a bit of time, and if anything, Lauzon continuing to find himself in a frustrating back and forth tie versus Adeyeye, and Jones not too far behind him. As the drivers head on through, we look further back to Nick Yakubov in the battle for what is P15 overall, but for P5 in the AM class. Mark Senegal leads it at the head of this quartet, and you can see it behind the drivers all close together. But meanwhile, whilst all this has happened, I'm hearing there's been a spin for John Lauzon at turn number 3, and there he is recovering, and well, Lauzon going around. We will get a replay of what exactly happened there and what happened to our Canadian driver, and surely the bad luck is not going to strike him. Well, here is a quick replay courtesy of Arturo Mayorga, and as we do see Lauzon coming down into the braking zone then for the right hander, we're losing the rear of the car, and in the end just going around like that, just a little bit too much speed, under trail braking, and for John Lauzon it all fell apart. But we now return to your live racing pictures, ladies and gentlemen, as we do, well, as our driver makes his way on through. Lauzon doing everything right now just to try and get himself back up to speed, but the top 3 have broken apart as a result of it, and that is definitely going to open up the racing towards the front of the field. Meanwhile, further down the order, we look to Nick Bader in what is the blue and black machine as he taps onto the rear of Edwin Offred, and I get the feeling that these two might be having words with each other after this race, given the fact they have really fought each other hard. I think for an Offred, he will be wondering why is Nick battling him so hard, and Nick in return will be thinking, you know what, Edwin, I'm going to give it everything here. But to be fair, they're allowed to fight each other. There's no rule that says they can't, and it's all for points at the end of the day. So that's why you'll be seeing Bader doing that fighting, and he'll be looking to try and chase his way back through. But speaking of fighting, Tom Bryce under pressure from an offer as they come down in towards turn number 3, and this time on lap number 13, what will start to occur at this point in the race is you will start to see some tyre wear and degradation accumulate. And now those drivers who pushed the tyres quite hard since the start of the race, they will be starting to struggle a little bit as they go deeper into the second half compared to those who perhaps nurse the tyre a little bit more, and that means that the racing will take a bit of a different dimension as they roar their way on down towards turn number 6. But as they do, all drivers coming on through, and for what is none other than Tom Bryce, he's been given a bit of a window because Onofre goes deep, and this means that Bader's going to look up the inside again. And well, Onofre and Bader, how many times are we going to talk about that combination today as we ride on board with Nick Bader here as he fights for position versus the number 75 onto the brakes, the number 99 I should say, through the right hand they go, and we'll roaring the way on through and up towards turn number 1. Well, now for Bader it's all about getting that throttle in as much as possible. He does have Aaron Lahr only what is 4 attempts behind him, so right now for Bader he's got to be cognizant of the fact that one small mistake for him could cost him a place just as much as it could help him gain the place from the drivers in front. And in towards the triple right-hander turns 1, 2 and 3 they go, and as they do, Nick Bader right now hard on the brakes here, just trying to tease the car out, and well, Bryce really struggling. You can see there the body language of Bryce's car versus Onofre's. Onofre's got a lot of life left in the car and he wants to attack, but the problem is that Bryce is having to park the car in apex, and therefore for Onofre it's now becoming another situation where he's got all the speed to try and get ahead, but Bryce is proving rather elusive as they head down towards turn 6. You can see Bryce in the middle of the road here, and Onofre over the back of him looks to the outside, trying to get Bryce to go defensive, try and get himself to either outbrake, alternatively go simply for the cutback. And Onofre doesn't achieve either of that, but Bader in turn now looks to the cutback as he runs up towards 7, and well, the 276 driver here cuts in a bit too early. I think that's to try and cover off Lahr, who is not too far behind either. In fact, there is Aaron Lahr as we look to the rear now of the P10 Toyota, and as they come out of the corner, Aaron Lahr actually pushing Bader along here as he runs all the way along the rear bumper. They roar their way down towards turn number 1. Brilliant racing between them as they head onwards towards the next lap, and well, for Nick Bader it's going to be a full process of here. What do I have to do? Do I have to go for an offensive defense or a defensive offense? And the answer is I can't tell you, but what I can tell you is that Bader's going to work it out as they make their way next to 100 miles an hour into turns 1 and 2. Hard on the brakes they go. Onofre on the inside of Bryce just in front, a bit of contact between the two of them, but Onofre does get through. Meanwhile, Bader just holding on there as Lahr puts a bit more pressure on. Further back we've got battling here between Blake Phillips, who absolutely jumps over the sausage curb, but he gets ahead of Billman DaCosta for P60 AM class, and that's Mark Senegal around. Senegal is around, coming out of turn number 3, and Mark Senegal's day goes from good to bad to worse in the Sunday GT Turtles machine. His teammate Roger Ganesh picks up the slack where he's gone around, but a big moment there for Mark Senegal just on the power, too eagerly coming out of turn 3, and the car going all the way for a trip forwards to the weeds, but thankfully able to keep it out of the wall. And by doing so now, well, we look back into that Bader versus Lahr battle on the back of Bryce, so you can see Bryce really just has not got the pace now as they head into the final 12 minutes of this race, and Bader I think just wants to find a way through. I think he feels though there's a bit of speed on his fingertips, but right now Bryce, much like for an offer, is proving to be elusive as the AM leader of Glenn Bratton. Well, it's been some time since we talked about Bratton being a leader, but to be fair, he did take a win in the LMP3 series at the end of 2024, and as they come down towards turn number 1, into the right hand they go, and offer it on the inside. I think it's going to be a bit of a formality, but Bratton will just simply try and hold place. You can see on offer they're going up into 2 wheels for a brief moment, through the right-hander, all 4 drivers here together, and well, in fact that is a pack now of what is 6 drivers, 7 drivers, because catching up to the back of this is both Marlon Brandel and also George Luiz, and the 2 Brazilian drivers right now absolutely hustling here to get involved. They may not have had the pace in qualifying, but by just simply staying out of trouble and keeping with their pace in the race, it's working out for them. As now here comes Bratton back at an off-road down into turn 6, and off-road on the outside. Bratton goes all in on the brakes, and there's contact between the 2 of them. You can see the car there almost being tossed sideways given the contact, and that is the weight transfer on that lightweight bodywork. And as they come on out, well, it's going to be Bratton who's pushed back there. Bryce gets back on through, and now Bader has got an opportunity to try and take the AM lead back as they make the way in towards the corner, and there's a bit of contact from Lahr on the rear panel of Bratton as they come out of turn number 8, and that's going to enable Nick Bader to take the AM lead as they head onto another lap. As they roar the way down, we've still got a way to go, and this is getting very, very feisty between all 7 drivers. They roar their way across. Here comes Marlon Brandel, who's looking for an opportunity to try and take the AM second place position off of Bratton, but Bratton and Lahr going too wide here into turn 1, too wide into turn number 2. Bratton's still on the outside, and the commitment from Bratton is absolutely incredible as they make the way through the right-hander, and it's going to be side by side still as they exit the corner. It's not over yet as Brandel and what is there, Luiz now fight each other, and meanwhile Lahr and Bratton are fighting, but as they come down towards turn number 4, well, it's going to be non-stop here all the way as George Louise all over the back of his fellow countryman. We ride on board here, looking to the left, looking to the right, doesn't know exactly which way to look, but he does know there's an opportunity to attack here, running the infamous Ayrton Senna helmet of his time at McLaren Honda, and challenging Ayrton Senna as Louise up the inside there on the exit of the corner. Does he get ahead as they come out towards turn number 7? He doesn't, as you can see. Brandel back there on the inside, and in front still Bratton and Lahr fight each other 2 by 2. They're showing you could go an entire lap here at the Circuito de Navarra side by side. It's absolutely brilliant racing, and well, you actually summed up perfectly there. Tinder Dienza in the YouTube chat to say it's incredible racing. The fact that neither driver wants to give him, but the respect being shown is absolutely fantastic. As they come down towards turn number 1, well, we've still got 9 minutes left on the clock. There's still more to come in this story, and Louise looking up the inside there, just trying to tease out a mistake from Lahr. Lahr on the inside of Bratton. What can Louise do? And look at that cutback from Louise on the car, but in the end has to slam the brakes, and the door is shut, given the fact it's not a corner at turn 3 that caters for 3 wide unless you're already there and your rolls have made a mistake. But George Louise showing just how quickly you can turn the front end of that Toyota on a dime, and he might be able to use that later on. Flashing his lights there, he's not happy about the fact he feels as though his line was cut off by Aaron Lahr, but I think Lahr's got his eyes on Bratton's rear, and only that as they head down towards turn number 6. You can see Louise looking to the inside, shaking the car around there, thinking, can he go for a move? And the answer is no, he can't, as this battle continues to rage on. Meanwhile, let's not forget we've got some race leaders as well, and here is your race leader of James Logsdon, who right now 1 second clear of David Addy and Julian Jones. Well, Addy and Jones have got their own little integral battle for P2 starting to form, but the top 3 have pulled themselves 9 seconds clear of the rest of the field, as Addy goes very wide out of turn 3 there, and I think he's going to have to give the time up as they make the way into turn number 4. Jones now looking for the cutback run on the outside as they come back through 4 down into 5, but these pro drivers right now are really having to try and squeeze out every little bit of pace here in order to make some further moves. But here comes Jones looking for the move on Addy as they come down towards the braking zone to turn number 6, but I get the feeling it's a double-edged sword here for Jones, because if he makes the move on Addy, he will lose the slipstream of Logsdon, but they're losing time to Logsdon already, given Addy's mistake at the start of this lap. So right now Jones really does need to try and find a way through, because otherwise Logsdon is just going to be allowed to walk away with this with the time remaining. Meanwhile, speaking of time for battling, well, Glenn Bratton, a little bit of tap there versus Louise coming out of turn number 5, and well, Louise moving on through. This is for P11, and well, in the end George Louise finally finds that place over Bratton, who's been fighting so hard for what has been P10 overall, and he's lost it to Lahr, he's lost it to Louise, and now he's going to be losing a place potentially to Marlon Brandel, who's a driver coming up behind. And Brandel being the third place AM driver, with Bratton being the P2 AM driver. Well, these two could get absolutely tenaciously close, and we could have a brilliant run-up battle here in the AM class, presuming that Nick Bader, who's in P8, is not ushered down into it. We'll have to wait and see what's to come, because it's not over until they reach that checker flag. It sounds simple on paper, but I can tell you it's anything but that. In the rear of the pitch, you've got Blake Phillips and Carl Peterson fighting each other as they head on down. You can see them there in the rear of the pitch of the Castrol Toyota versus what is the yellow machine as they roar the way into the corner. In fact, we look back to Blake Phillips right now is trying to fend off Peterson, and Peterson on the rear of Phillips. They head in towards turn number 2. The Volt Toyota absolutely trying to charge here after Peterson having a bit of a difficult start to this race, but now starting to come back alive. And to be fair to Carl Peterson, we talked about that a number of times, whether it be in the Formula 4 series, alternatively the Radical series, or the LMP3s, in the fact that with Peterson, once he gets enough time behind the helm of his chosen machine, he does really start to find the pace in it, but it does take him some time. But Carl Peterson, a developing driver, and it's great to see the development over the years he's raced in the Middle Pack Racing League series, as he now looks around the outside trying to develop his position a bit more. And well, it's going to be a defensive line there for Phillips going deep into the corner, but Peterson's not ready to capitalise, and therefore they stay as they were. But Peterson now starting to try and cause a move to come into effect as they roll their way in towards turn number 8. Behind him is Bulman da Costa by 2.7 seconds, and you've also got Roger Ganesh quickly closing, and these drivers all now starting to push each other under a little bit of pressure as we head towards the final 6 minutes. Not long left in this race as they roar the way under the Spanish sunshine. No sign of rain in sight, but one thing that has definitely been pouring down has been some absolutely brilliant battling moments. I'm sure we've still got some more to come before this race is said and done, as we look back up to the fight for P2. And here is David Addy now 1.7 seconds off of James Logsdon, but with Julian Jones still only 3 to 4 attempts behind him as they head in towards the final couple of corners of this lap before going on to lap 22. And Jones just not quite able to get as close as he would like, or he was over the last couple of laps. And again, tyre life now could really start to becoming a premium here, and perhaps the drivers have started to tiptoe their way around, knowing that the tyres are not going to give them any form of grip like what they used to have. And well, if that is so, then you would imagine it is going to come to blows with regards to the fact they'll be pushing the car too hard, and it only takes a slight overstep with regards to the expected tyre life before that car snaps loose. We've seen it already a number of times in the race and even in qualifying, and we could see it again as they head in towards lap 22. And we've got plenty of go as that is a car around, and I believe that is a car that's now a lap down. That is Nick Yakubov, who's had a spin at the turn 3 hairpin, and well, he steps aside there in P21, respecting the blue flags and letting the race leaders make the way on through. But from then we now look to what is the battle for P7 here, and Ed went off around the outside of Nick Bader, and well, I think Bader's trying to attack an offer. Yes, he is. And well, these two once again at what is absolute clashing swords here between them, and was they roar the way through turn 4. Onofre right now, I think he's had enough of dealing with Bader, but Bader I think is absolutely loving this as they head through the left-hander at turn number 5. Onofre on that inside line, Bader's still there, and well, every point matters when it's 50 for a win, and we work it down point by point. Well, right now Nick Bader could be on for a big score here, even more so if he takes that P7 on the inside there. And Onofre's going to try and cut back. As he does so, he finds a face full of what is Bader's car. Well, that's the rear of Onofre's car, but what about Nick Bader's? There it is, and as he heads on through the left-hander in towards turn number 8, well, right now Bader absolutely holding on as much as he can as they head out of turn number 8 onto the next lap, roaring the way through. But you can see that Onofre just struggling to be able to find a way through, or at least find a way through it and then break away from Bader. And Bader is absolutely loving every moment of this, and this is some brilliant battling. And if anything, I think it's now started to stake the claim here from Nick Bader, that I think he feels as though he started to step up towards the pros. But as they head through 1 and in towards 2, and Onofre all over the back of it this time, a little tap on the rear there as he's practically being pushed through the corner here as they come down. And Onofre, I think he feels as though he can carry more speed, but Bader simply saying to, well, that's absolutely fine, but you're going to have to tap me. And as they head in towards turn 4, well, meanwhile Kyle Moraes has just been allowed to run away with this, who's now in P6, he's 2 seconds clear. And as they head through turn number 5, I think the frustration for Onofre here will be simmering over, and as they roar the way out to left-hander down towards turn number 6. We know that Onofre is a cool character, but everybody has their limits, and right now I think Bader and Onofre are going to have a rivalry which is going to start today and could run all the way through the season here. Even though if they're not in the same class, I think these two drivers right now are definitely going to see themselves as big rivals for the season. But roaring their way out 7 towards 8, and Onofre now looks at the outside here, and Bader just puts the car in the middle of the road. And we'll know exactly how wide the car is and where to put it, where he can get the traction. Really has proven to be the difference here today, as meanwhile, further back in the rear of the picture, you do see there was George Louise and Aaron Law at the bottom end of the top 10. Glenn Bratton, meanwhile, he leads a long line of AM cars, which is Bratton, Brandel, Phillips and Peterson in the battle for P2 in the AM class as they come across the timing line. And as they do, well, these four absolutely inseparable with 2 minutes left on the clock plus the final lap. And as they come down towards turn number 1 this time, well, they're all running together here for now. There's going to be a move on the inside here, and that's going to be Brandel. Looking all the way out the inside, cuts in. Bratton goes to the cutback in return. And, well, in the end, Bratton gets the cutback there. Brandel gets it stopped. But Bratton has got other ideas. It'll be too wide in the exit of turn 3. How they managed to get their car stopped in time without contact, well, that's absolutely impressive from these AM drivers. And down towards 5 they'll go. But as they do, look at Peterson looking on the inside there, Blake Phillips. So Peterson now trying to get involved, trying to interject. But Phillips will carry the greater speed around through the left-hander. Down towards turn 6. Into that braking zone of Phillips and Peterson battling side by side in the rear. But meanwhile, Bratton looking up the inside of Brandel under braking, not able to find it, and Phillips there squeezed himself back ahead of Peterson for now, but in towards turn 7 they go, so they're back to now single line formation. Brandel now the leader of this pack with Bratton, then Phillips, then Peterson, but the battle for P2 in the AM class hasn't ended here, and while leaders have already gone to lap 25, we'll have one more lap after this. We'll get 26 turns of the circuit before it's all said and done, and well, now it's a drag race here onwards towards was the penultimate lap, and well, Marlon Brandel has already broken away. Phillips, meanwhile, he sees this as an opportunity to strike now today to move into P3 in the AM class, but Bratton there on the outside isn't going to let it go, and Carl Peterson is still watching as they roar their way through turns 1 and 2. In towards 3, they get ready to go. 2 wheels there up into the sky for what's Blake Phillips, but it gives him the space to take the move and take the position into turn 3. And Blake Phillips there being absolutely daring, and Glenn Bratton right now, I think, slightly mesmerised by that, and we've seen the number of drivers put it on 2 wheels there today. successfully, and Will Blake Phillips adds his name to that list of drivers. But meanwhile, looking back towards the front, and here we see James Logsdon going on to the final lap of the race. Fastest lap of the race has just gone to David Adeyee of a 1 minute 10.413, set on that penultimate lap in the toe of Logsdon. He's closed up to the Team Bear Poke driver, but I think the feeling for Adeyee here is he's not being able to get close enough too soon, and therefore he's left it too late, because Logsdon matching Adeyee for pace and clean air. Well, right now, Logsdon, all he needs to do is make sure that gap doesn't collapse any further down before the hairpins as they roar the way through the corners, and from them, meanwhile, in the battle for P4, John Lauzon is still bringing on Shahi Zahair in their fight, albeit Zahair has caught up over time, and it does look as though Lauzon right now may just have a little bit of breathing room to work with in order to stay alive. But meanwhile, in what is the AM podium battle, well, there's Phillips at the inside of Marlon Brandle for P2 in the AM class 2, where they enter into turns 1 and 2. He's going to be at the inside and once again jumping over the sausage curve there, and Blake Phillips gets it done as meanwhile Cole Peterson's lost the rear of the car. But from them, ladies and gentlemen, we must come to the front of the field, because he makes it out the final corner and put it on pole. He's led every lap of today, and James Logsdon will take the first oval victory of the season and in the pro class as the checker flag falls to the Team Bear Poke driver ahead of David Adeyee P2 for ITT West, and Julian Jones wraps up the top 3 there, the privateer. It will then be a sizable 10-second gap before we get to John Lauzon, who in the end will take P4 ahead of Shahi Zahair, who pushed him every step of the way but wasn't quite able to find a way in. And then we have a further 12 seconds to Kyle Morais, who will come on through on his debut in the GR86s to take P6, just ahead of your AM winner Nick Bader there, you can see in the light blue machine, who holds off Edward Offred to take P7. George Louise will take P9 at the close ahead of Aaron Lahr, and then in the battle for the run-up spot in the AM class, Blake Phillips, the two-wheel hero of today, takes that second place in AM class P11 ahead of Marlon Brandle, who on his debut in the Middle of the Pack Racing Series League takes third place in the AM class, a brilliant start to his season ahead of Glenn Bratton. Tom Bryce finishes P14, separating at Bratton from his fellow Amber Bill da Costa. Roger Ganesh will take P16 at the close ahead of Carl Peterson, with that late spin cost him dear. Mark Senegal P18, and then we will have Jermaine Warren at P19, and last but not least, to complete this race on the lead lap, it will be Navarra Kamar P20, as finishing a lap down Nick Yakubov and Aaron Tiggott. But my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, what a race. Our 22 entrants. It was an absolute nail-biter from start to finish, and whilst the lead battle may have only had some brief moments of sparks, there were plenty of sparks further down, whether it was the fight for P2 between Adeyee and Jones, the fight for P7 between Bader and Offred, or the fight for the runner-up spot in the AM class, with Blake Phillips in the end taking that spot ahead of what was Marlon Brandle, Glenn Bratton, and also Carl Peterson, who all held it at some point, but in the end Blake Phillips held it when it mattered most, and that was at the checkered flag. Whilst the drivers make their way into the pit lane, let's take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. So in an absolutely thrilling season opener here at the Circuito de Navarra Speed Circuit Medium for the 2025 Winter GR86 Championship, hosted by the Middle of the Pack Racing League on iRacing, James Logsdon was your winner by 1 second for Team Bear Pope over David Adeyee. Behind Adeyee, Julian Jones, 2.5 seconds in the end, falling off the pace right at the close, but still pushing Adeyee to the line, with John Lauzon at P4. They're the West Coast Best Coast driver, struggling in the early stages, but in the end doing well to take the top 5 spot there with Shahi Zahair, who rounded off your top 5 at P5. Kyle Morais, P6 there, the Brazilian driver, making his way gradually through the field after a difficult qualifying session, ahead of your AM winner Nick Bader, who today really got the big workout in fighting with the pro drivers as well as some AMs around him. A somewhat, I think, frustrated Edwin Offred P8, knowing that P6, perhaps even a top 5 was on the cards today, but Nick Bader was the 4 on his side, and it was George Louise ahead of Aaron Lahr, who completed your top 10, and Louise on his debut taking the top 10 finish. That's nothing to be ashamed of. Blake Phillips rounded off the run to P2 in the AM class there. It's best the rest P11. Congratulations to him, ahead of Marlon Brandle, who on his debut takes P3 in the AM class with P12 overall. Glenn Bratton P13 ahead of Tom Bryce, with William da Costa completing the top 15. And it was Roger Ganesh, Carl Peterson, Mark Senegal, and then to complete the top 20, Jermaine Warren and Navarra Kamar. They were the last 2 lead lap finishers, and finishing a lap down both Nick Yakubov and also Aaron Tiggott. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, now let's come on to the individual class finishing positions, because these, of course, will lead to some bonus points being awarded in the AM class. But as we can see in the Pro class, firstly, James Logsdon taking that win in the Pro class by 1 second over David Adie and Gillian Jones rounding off the podium. John Lauzon, your P4 finisher ahead of Shahi Zahir and Kaya Moraes, Edwin Offrey, George Louise, Aaron Lahr and Tom Bryce completing the Pro top 10, with Aaron Tiggott having a frustrated debut in the Pro class, having previously raced in the Prime and the Am classes to finish 11th place, a lap down. But knowing there's plenty more rounds to go and there's one drop score over the entire season. We'll then come on to the AM class, and this is where the bonus points will be awarded to the podium finishers, and it's 3 bonus points to Nick Bader there with that brilliant performance, 11.5 seconds clear of Blake Phillips, who takes the 2 bonus points, and then 1 extra point to Marlon Brandle for the 3rd place finish. Glenn Bratton, 3 seconds out of Billman da Costa, and da Costa, I think, hoping that perhaps things could have been different today, and some early battles and difficulties cost him the opportunity to chase the podium, but still plenty more to come over the season. Roger Ganesh P6 there for Sunday GT Turtles, and a difficult day for the team, not quite on the pace, and spins also abounding, and Ganesh separated from his teammate Senegal by Carl Peterson, who finished P7. That was Mark Senegal P8 ahead of Jermaine Warren, with Navarra Kamar completing the AM top 10, and finishing a lap down best of SP11, Nick Yakubov for Slipstream Sloths. But that concludes your rundown of the results, ladies and gentlemen, and your racing here today in Spain, and what a brilliant race it was. 30 minutes of absolutely non-stop action, and I suspect we are going to see plenty of that as the season goes on, and I think this has really just been the taster. But with that, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching today, and if you have enjoyed the racing and you want to know more about the Middle of the Pack Racing League community, the MPRL, we do firstly recommend you check out our official Discord, an invite link available on screen, and that's going to be the beaten art where you can find out all the latest information and speak to the drivers and the administrators for the ongoing and upcoming series at the Middle of the Pack Racing League, and I can assure you there's going to be plenty going on in 2025. This is just the start. But if you don't want to necessarily go to our Discord, perhaps you're more of a social media person, we do recommend you follow us on Twitter, and that's at twitter.com/MOP Racing, where you can stay up to date with all the latest news and all things MOP, including the trials and tribulations of the official Middle of the Pack Racing League esports teams as they compete in iRacing official events and in other series. But ladies and gentlemen, attention now turns to round number 2. And in a week's time, we will be making our way to Germany for the Motorsport Arena Oschersleben, a circuit with a high level of complexity and a whole variety of sweeping corners and chicanes, and will, for all the action there in round number 2 of the championship, it will take place on what will be none other than Wednesday, the 5th of February 2025. Goodness me, we're already in February, but come join us as if it were live on Sunday, the 9th of February, where we bring you all the racing action and see how the story continues after a thrilling season opener. But until then, we've been Middle of the Pack Racing League. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, have a great rest of your weekend. Remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.